Remember the 5th of November. Gunpowder, treason and plot. I know of no reason why gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Guy Fawkes, it was his intent to blow up the king and the parliament. 70 barrels of powder below, poor old England to overthrow. By God's providence, he was catched with a dark lantern and burning match. Holla boys, make the bells ring. Holla boys, God save the king. Hip hip hooray.
To die in vain and apathy ruled by men who know no empathy. Men to die in vain and apathy ruled by men who know no empathy. We resemble to rats, we have all become nuts. Sitting, reminiscing of the glorious days before the dawn of our plagues. Now we're sitting on a globe where the sex and death and human crime in monochrome. For one can die on corrupted souls and pervaded bodies with laboratory substances. Can we come up from this weight? There's a hope that lights to us all to seemingly remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason and blood. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason and blood. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. In the tunnel of life we can still find the light to stare and to follow. Molten ice, try to see the lost love and we believe, but what hides beneath light and steam, please? Fear and fraud in everyone's souls, resulting from the big ones. Momently fever was a reason to live, but now isolation is turning us into pieces. Their actions, the puller strings and tell us. Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason and blood. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason and blood. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. It's not just a lie, but it is a get us ahead, let us wait to rule this land on our own. Remember the past, not alone. We'll finally cast away. Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason and blood. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. It's not just a lie, but it is a remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason and blood. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should
Madame Justice that I dedicate this concerto in honor of the holiday she seems to have taken from these parts, and in recognition of the impostor that stands in her stead. Tell me, do you know what day it is, Evie?
November the 4th.
Not anymore. Remember, remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. First, the overture. Yes, the strings. Listen carefully, can you hear it? Now the brass.
I can hear it.
Look outside, Mummy. They're playing music.
How did he do that?
Wait, here comes the crescendo. How beautiful, is it not?
I said that I would tell you about Guy Fawkes and why the 5th of November is the traditional day for fireworks in England. The year was 1605. 2 years earlier, the old Queen, Elizabeth I, had died. She had ruled England for 45 years. She died unmarried and without children. Her nearest relative was King James VI of Scotland, who travelled south to London to become James I of England. At that time, there were bitter divisions in Western Europe between Protestants and Catholics. England was predominantly a Protestant country, but there were some powerful Catholic families. Some old houses near Birmingham have secret rooms, priest holes, where Catholic priests could be hidden at times of persecution. Many Catholic families, despite their religion, were loyal to the king, but others wanted to overthrow the king and replace him with a Catholic monarch. They looked to France and Spain for help. One such group included a man called Guy Fawkes. He was a professional soldier. He had fought in the Spanish army in the Netherlands. He and his fellow conspirators rented a storeroom beneath the Houses of Parliament. Secretly, they filled it with barrels of gunpowder. They planned to blow up the Houses of Parliament on the 5th of November, at a time when the king and many of the most powerful men in England were there. They hoped that Catholics in England would then rebel and that Spain would send an army to put a Catholic king on the throne of England. But one of the plotters sent a secret letter to Lord Monteagle, advising him to stay away from Parliament. Monteagle was a Catholic, but he immediately gave the letter to Robert Cecil, the King's chief minister, who ran a security and intelligence service. Cecil sent men to search the Parliament building. They found Guy Fawkes and 36 barrels of gunpowder. The rest of the plotters were quickly arrested or died in a fight with the King's men at King's Winford, near modern Birmingham. The survivors were tried and executed in a horrible way. And ever since then, English people have celebrated the discovery of the gunpowder plot by building bonfires and letting off fireworks on the 5th of November. Often we place an effigy of Guy Fawkes on the fire. We have an old rhyme which goes, "Remember, remember the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason and plot. I see no reason why gunpowder treason should ever be forgot."
Hello and welcome to All of the Best. With it coming up to Bonfire Night in the UK, we thought we would give you 10 facts about Guy Fawkes. This annual tradition is a way of remembering the events of November 5, 1605, when a plot to blow up the Houses of Parliament, killing all inside it including the King, was foiled. One of the most famous conspirators of what became known as the Gunpowder Plot was Guy Fawkes. Here are 10 facts about him. Fact 1. Guy Fawkes, or Guido Fawkes as he also liked to be known, was born on April 13, 1570 in Stonegate in York. He was educated at St. Peter's School in York. Fact 2. Guy Fawkes was born a Protestant but converted to Catholicism when he was about 16. At the time, religious teaching was dictated by the Church of England, which would not tolerate Roman Catholicism. Therefore it was difficult for followers of the Catholic faith to worship freely in England. Guy Fawkes and the other members of the Gunpowder Plot were all Catholics, and the plot was a response to the repression they experienced. Another reason for wanting to kill the king was that King James I was Scottish. Up to 1603, England and Scotland were ruled as two separate nations with two different monarchs. After the death of Queen Elizabeth I, King James, who was then King James VI of Scotland, was next in line to the throne of England. Therefore he became the first monarch to rule both nations, a situation which would later go on to create what is now the United Kingdom. Some English people were opposed to being under the rule of a Scot, so the Gunpowder Plot would have put an end to that. Fact 3. Guy Fawkes was an experienced soldier. Although he didn't fight for his country, he fought for the Spanish against the Dutch in the Netherlands. This is where he gained experience with explosives, and also where he decided to call himself Guido. Fact 4. Although Guy Fawkes wasn't the main conspirator in the Gunpowder Plot, he probably had one of the most important roles. A cellar below the Houses of Parliament was rented by the members of the plot, which was filled with 36 barrels of gunpowder. There was enough gunpowder that it would have completely destroyed the building and caused damage to buildings within a 1-mile radius of it. Guy Fawkes was in charge of guarding the gunpowder, and, if he hadn't have been caught, would have been the person that lit it. It is claimed that, although there was enough gunpowder to cause quite considerable damage, the gunpowder had actually decayed and, if it had been lit, would not have exploded. Ironically, the cellar that the gunpowder was stored, and the Houses of Parliament themselves, were later destroyed in a fire in 1834. The fire was accidental. Fact 5. During his involvement in the Gunpowder Plot, Fawkes called himself John Johnson and gave this name when arrested. Fact 6. Despite being involved in what is basically a terrorist plot, Guy Fawkes was named the 30th greatest Briton in a poll conducted by the BBC in 2002. Fact 7. Shortly after being discovered, Fawkes was taken to the King's bedchamber to explain why he wanted to kill him and blow up Parliament. Fawkes calmly answered that he regarded the King as a disease since he had been excommunicated by the Pope. He also explained that he needed such a huge quantity of gunpowder to blow you Scotch beggars back to your own native mountains. Fact 8. Under torture, it took up to 4 days for Guy Fawkes to admit to his part in the Gunpowder Plot and give names of other people involved in it. His signature on the written confession after torture, which is still held by the National Archives, was very faint and weak. A signature on a confession written 8 days later shows his name, which he wrote as Guido much more clearly. Fawkes and other people involved in the gunpowder plot were tried on January 31, 1606 and then hung, drawn, and quartered in the Old Palace Yard in Westminster. Fawkes leaped from the gallows when being hanged to escape the unpleasantness of being drawn and quartered. Contrary to popular belief, Fawkes wasn't thrown onto a bonfire. That only happens to straw dummies made of him since. Fact 9. An uninhabited island to the north of Santa Cruz Island in the Galapagos Islands is named Isla Guy Fawkes, or Guy Fawkes Island. Who knows why? Maybe he planned to escape there? Fact 10. Guy was once a term for an ugly, repulsive person in reference to Guy Fawkes. Straw effigies made of Guy Fawkes and burned to remember the gunpowder plot are also known as guys. In the 17th century, live cats were stuffed into the effigies to make it sound like Guy was screaming as being burned. Over time, Guy began to be used as a term for a man, possibly as a half-meant insult, and is a word in common use today. So there you have it, 10 facts about Guy Fawkes.